and thank you for tuning in today to the Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer, and this is WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. My special guest today is Jason Usry, who has been on the show. He was just on the show a couple weeks ago. And we are trying to get Matt Lostaglia on the line. I think we're having some technical difficulties or whatever. I'm not really sure, but Matt might be joining us. We had planned on doing that, so just a heads up. If we have to add him to the call, he'll be here. So welcome, Jason. Thanks a lot for coming back on the show, man.
Oh, man, always a pleasure.
I love talking with you. I always feel like, there's such a cool exchange of energy and ideas and, just talking about the work process and all. And for the folks tuning in, if this is your first time listening to the show, thank you for checking us out. Jason's background is in film and television. He's got a lot of professional credits to his name, as well as he also is the executive producer of a really cool podcast called End of Watch with Bootsy and Sal. And so we're going to be talking this, we've got 2 hours, so we're going to be talking this next 2 hours about, just production work and, creativity and stuff like that. And Bass, do you mind playing some live music for us? All right, so this is Sebastian Messer, everybody, playing live music. What are you playing today?
Leonard Skinner.
Well, Leonard Skinner. All right. Thank you, Bass. That was great.
Good stuff.
Yeah, man. So, Jason, welcome back. You were on just a couple weeks ago, and man, what a crazy couple of weeks, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, this week, I tell you what, y'all. Jason is one of those guys that he's always got stuff going on. I'm one of those guys. I've always got stuff going on, and this last couple of weeks has just been a grind for me. I mean,
man.
The heat wave that we had, and then this today's Labor Day weekend. So happy Labor Day weekend, everybody out there. And I know that you guys with End of Watch, you just post something out that you're working on some new episodes, right?
Yeah, we've got. I've been lining up. I think I've got 9 or 10 new guests for the new season lined up. They're some people I'm really excited to talk to and for the guys to talk to, and really, really exceptional, law enforcement people. Of course, there's a lot of that that's going on right now, that discussions that need to be had, and so some good things there, I think, and we're excited to do that. Hopefully, we'll get that going in the next couple of weeks. So the next month we'll have new episodes starting to roll out every week.
Nice. That's I think that's one of the nice things about actually it brings this topic up for me this week, talking about being a grind. Y'all were on hiatus for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're coming back in, and you've got 9 or 10 episodes lined up for the next season. And this week I've been doing this Ray Bradbury challenge of reading a poem, an essay, and a short story a night. Made a 38-day streak, and then Wednesday, and then the last since Thursday, I read every day, but I haven't been doing it. I just started doing it again today, and so I caught up with I've been reading the sonnets by Shakespeare for my poetry stuff, and I listen to audiobooks, so I've been counting that as my essays.
Sure.
And short stories. I've been reading Ray Bradbury. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the last 3 days, and then today, I've been reading, but I didn't follow that same formula, right? And so I think it's important when you have a little hiatus, or if you have, you get off track a little bit, but it's something that you want to, stick with, and you have a long term goal with it. Like my
Sure.
show, like your show. You figure out how to get back at it and how to make it
Yeah,
better. Because sometimes I think stepping away can help you kind of refocus, right?
absolutely.
And sometimes if you hit that wall, it's like, how do we move past it? And there's times where it's like you got to just show up and blow up, and then there's other times where you got to step back and say, hey, okay, how do we regroup, right?
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
what's something that, like, when y'all were on hiatus, obviously you came back, you've got like 9 or 10 guests, you were doing some work, behind the scenes, lining up, these interviews and stuff like that. What's some of the stuff that you were refocusing on to improve and make the show better when y'all do come back in for the next season?
Well, I think for us, a lot of it is identifying, varied guests who have, law enforcement backgrounds and who have interesting things to say around that subject. I mean, we had some really, really great guests last season who, brought a lot of, excellent experience and whatnot. But in this kind of break, I wanted to find a little more variety in terms of the people that we brought, to the fore. And so that was kind of my focus. I mean, I think we're, a big part of our push is that we're raw, and I do, post-production and editing and things like that, but it's very, very limited because I want people to hear what Bootsy and Sal have to say without any editing. I mean, what they have to say is very real and very important. And so, my focus during this time has really been more about that focus on the guests and bring in some different voices to the podcast, because there's so many different, especially now over the last 6-7 months as we've been in quarantine and everything, and the coronavirus pandemic, the perspective of law enforcement in many different avenues have shifted quite a bit. So I think it's important that we include that perspective as we move forward, and and just kind of broaden our scope.
I think that's a great way to do it. I've been listening to this audiobook called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And one of the things that he was talking about, like, when things change, kind of in midstream, right? And he talks about when you're setting a new good habit, So, for example, like if you're doing a schedule, right? Things happen, like
Right.
with a show. Like today, Matt Lostaglia was going to be on the show, and I'm not really sure what's going on with him. You just kind of roll with it and you go with it.
That's it. Show goes on, right?
Yeah, the show goes on, and hopefully, everything's okay. I send him a message just saying, "Hey, man, just you okay or whatever."
Sure.
And I think that that's a big part of professional communication, that you have to adapt to change, right?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of times people tend to assume the worst, but things happen.
Right.
I had a guest recently. I brought this up before the show, but I had a guest recently that had rescheduled with me multiple times, and after the third time that they rescheduled or they forgot, I was like, okay, okay, and so you have to kind of balance it. You have to judge it and balance it, and and we worked everything out. Because I always try to look at it from the perspective of, okay, well, things happen.
Sure.
I've had some people that I've reached out to do an interview with, kind of big time me, and I'm like, oh, that's fine. I don't. It doesn't bother me if you have your own agenda or whatever.
Sure.
And then I've had other folks where they've asked me to do the show, and I'm like, I don't know if it's such a good fit. So. But going back to the Atomic Habits and like talking about interruptions and like getting off track with what happens. like for example, this week with the reading, that's one of my goals is to do this little, 1,000-day track. And he was talking about like if you miss, like for example, with fitness, if you say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out, X amount of times a week. Well, if you miss, if you're saying I'm going to go 5 times and you miss on the 3rd day, then make sure you go back the 4th and 5th day,
Right.
and get back on track, get back on the horse or whatever. And I feel like that's important because, like with the radio show, for example, we, I like having guests in the studio with me, but we've had to adapt and change, just for everybody's safety.
Sure.
And I've adapted and I changed to where I do the interviews by the phone,
Right.
and I feel like, it's been a pretty decent change. I've been able to, to continue working with the show, continue getting, the show interviews out and luckily, I mean, like this is the first time ever, but I'm booked up through December and, I'm looking at already into, January and I'm
Sure.
looking at like, okay, well, how am I going to progress with the show for next year? So
Right.
I think it's one of the interesting things when you have something that you want to do. They don't always like at least in my head, I have these expectations of like how things are going to work out,
Right.
and then like when they fall flat or something like that, it's like, oh man, it just didn't happen the way I wanted it to. So how do you deal with disappointment? When you're like creative disappointment, you know what I mean? Like when something
Sure.
doesn't happen the way you want it to, or the way you thought it would kind of unravel. How do you deal with that, Jason?
Well, I think it's important to have a broader goal. I mean, I just had a project that fell through that I was very, very excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And, but the fact that project fell through does not dictate whether or not I will be successful, moving forward. I mean, a lot of it's about discipline
Right.
and, living, living that commitment to whatever your goal is. And, I'm a writer. I've written screenplays and stories since I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be 40 this year. And, it's kind of one of those things that I wrote my first screenplay and I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I was inspired and I was like, okay, I'll just do this. And, I finished it and I didn't expect to finish it. And then I was kind of hooked on it. And so, because of that, I kind of committed myself to walking this path and yeah, I've had, things that have seemed very, very close and things like that. Like I said, just recently, a project that, I was so excited about, over the moon about, and it fell apart. And, I could let that define my next steps, or I could say I'll feel sorry about myself, for myself for a day, and then I'll get back on it. I'll give you a good example of this. So when I was in college, I was at Valdosta State University, and I wrote a short film, and we were more of a journalism focused department at that time.
Hold that thought for a second, Jason.
You got
hold that thought because I think this is Matt calling us now.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I'm gonna add him to the call. So this is live radio, everybody.
That's right.
All right.
Anything can happen.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I want to hear the story though.
Okay.
Hold on a second here. All right. And y'all, this is one of the things I love about technology. This would not have happened without a smartphone. So,
hello,
Matt. Hey, man. Hey, I got you on live on the radio, and let me merge the call with Jason.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, merge calls. All right, Jason.
Yes.
All right, Matt.
Yes.
Okay, so we're live on WRUU, everybody. This is 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And Jason, can you were talking about you were up at Valdosta State, and
Yes.
you were working on a project.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I'll try to be quick on the story. It was
Oh no, take your time. We got 2 hours.
I won't take 2 hours on it, but yeah, no. So I wrote a short film, and I was kind of pestering my professors to let me produce the project, and they were kind of reticent about it. And finally, I'd studied abroad in London. On the flight back, one of my professors was our advisor that went to London with us, and he was sitting like a row up, and we were both on the aisle, on opposite aisles. He was a row up from me across the aisle, and he turned around and he saw he looked at me, he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was storyboarding my movie. And he said, "I told you that we couldn't let you do that." And I said, "Well, just because you say I can't do it doesn't mean I can't do it." And he looked forward, he sighed, he dropped his shoulders, turned around and said, "Okay, we'll figure it out." And that was how I got my first chance to make a film. And so they agreed to let me do this movie. I had already written it, but to do the pre-production and production in the fall semester, post-production and screening in the spring. And in the spring semester, I had edited the entire movie. There was a computer upgrade to all of our systems. We were 2 weeks out from our screening, and when they came in and upgraded the systems, I lost everything.
Oh no!
And so I had 2 weeks. I remember walking out of that edit room and just wandering
that's back
around
before
campus.
like they had large flash drives too, y'all.
Yeah,
I mean, like they used to have like the little
2000.
zip drives or something like that, which were kind of small. And there's no way it would carry like a movie, so like stuff was stored on hard drives.
Yes, I mean, I was devastated about it, and
Yeah.
I walked out of that room, and I kind of wandered around campus that day, and I allowed myself one day to feel bad, but then I still had again, the overarching goal was to finish this project, and I had a grade that depended on it, and it's not their fault that it got lost, so it becomes a personal accountability thing when you have a dream and a goal and a purpose, and so you figure it out, and it goes back to your adaptability and everything. So
yeah, I think that's definitely an important trait. Hey, Matt, welcome, Matt Lostaglia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for accepting me so late.
Oh man, we were just,
Matt.
it's crazy because we were just talking like about how you got to kind of roll with things, and things happen, and don't assume the worst. Just keep communication professional and all, and so I mean, I think this is a good example of like what the kind of stuff that we talk about. You just
Oh no, this was real life meets
it's
the
like
ideology.
Yeah, you gotta practice what you preach. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna do." And Jason, talking about that, having the feeling kind of down about it for a day. There was a commencement speaker that we had. His name was Walter Bond. He was a professional NBA player, and this is when I worked at the University of Phoenix. We had him as our commencement speaker one year. And he was talking about that same thing, like when things happen, it's okay to throw yourself a pity party, for like a day or so, but then you pick yourself back up, and I've kind of adapted this one thing that's been working for me. It's been helping me. It's like, okay, well, what would future Adam want present Adam to do so that future Adam, when he's present Adam, is not looking back at past Adam thinking, why did you do that?
Right.
So, I've been using that kind of mantra to, and I'll be honest with it, this week has been a meat grinder for me. It's like with work, the heat, I do industrial electrical work, and, it's just, it's not that it was the work itself was overbearing or anything like that, or the people, the people were fine. It's just that, combination of the kind of work and then the heat, and I've had some other disappointments with things, had some car problems, had some other things. This week I just, like I said earlier, I did the challenge, the 38-day Ray Bradbury challenge up until day 38. Yeah. And Wednesday, and I was like, last couple of days I've had, just try to take and recover. I've still done other things that I had to do, but I've had to, I've had to recover. And, like doing this radio show, there's, a certain time, I've got to be here, and I want to continue, providing this show for the audience, and, so even during the COVID stuff, the pandemic and all, I wanted to be able to do it safely, and I wanted to be able to offer this as a way to, for people to be able to talk about what they're doing. So I think it's just, you gotta just roll with it. So,
Sure.
So okay, everybody, I'm so glad that Matt was able to join the call with us, and that Jason's here, because the three of us, we all do our own shows, and we all have our own shows. Matt, if you don't mind, Matt, I'll just give a little breakdown here. But Matt has launched his new Lostaglia Inc. company. Last week you were on talking about it, and since then you have you've launched your training program, right?
So I launched I basically sent out a free training. I launched a live training to do for people, and interestingly enough, like, you envision something. And before we dive into it, I wanted to touch on Jason's story and how that ties into exactly what I just did.
Okay.
Like, this literally just happened in my life.
All right.
So, I
didn't want to. Honestly, the reason why I didn't ask Matt was because we are live on air, and I didn't want to step, out of the boundaries and pry into your personal life. But if you want to share, share.
No,
but I didn't want to even I didn't want to put you in that compromising position, because I'm like, life happens, y'all. Life happens. This is like real life. So
yeah, no, this is what it was. It's funny because it's one of my business. It's all built around resilience and real time resilience. How do you get it from being a philosophical, theoretical matter to practical in your life, where it actually changes it for the better?
Right.
And the way that Jason talked about in his story, when he gave himself that day, he gave himself a time to embrace the fact that there was some suck. There was absolutely some no good feelings, and like, pushing that aside and not acknowledging that the existence of the negative implications of that event is not helpful. But also sitting and sulking in it is also not helpful. So my wife and our daughter went out to do this hike, and so that she could go see this waterfall and do this natural rock slide. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's like 30 feet high, and you can slide down these like natural rocks that the water's bellowing down. And so we did this hike out there, and we timed it all out. We're like, we need to leave at this time, we need to be back, and this takes this much time. We did all the planning, but there were 4 unforeseen variables that all went against me. and so the time stacked up, and we're in the backcountry where there's no reception. And so as we're coming down, we hit the turnaround point, we're coming back, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, with the amount of people that were out there and how skinny the path is, and you're going down the side of a mountain, you can't pick up the pace. And so I was very upset because I had made a promise. I told you and I told Jason that I was going to be here at a certain time. And so for me, that's a big part of my identity. That's part of who I am. I like to be where I'm going to be. I like to follow through on my word. And so I got all sorts of upset on the inside, as we're going down, like frustrated and mad at everything. And what I do in those times is, like, I'm going to feel it. I know I'm going to. There's no way that I'm not going to have those emotional responses to these events. But what I like to do is I like to try to I take on the mentality and the thought process that everything's my fault. 100% of things that happen in my life are my fault. And the benefit of looking at things that way is, well, the con is that every bad thing that happened, the common denominator is me, And so that's where I can make the fix. So that's actually the positive mixed in with it too, is that if I am the thing that's causing the problem, it means that I can be the thing that causes the solution. And it also means that everything that's gone right in my life has to do with me too. It's my fault. So it's about taking radical responsibility. And so when I looked at it that way, and I was like, you know what? I could have planned in more time to account for variables, and this was on me. And you know what? Like, I will get back. I'm going to make sure that we're safe. I'm gonna make sure we get back, and as soon as I get back, and we ended up, we're actually at this resort on the side in the mountains that I went to. I'm like, I know they have Wi-Fi, so we just stopped here, and that's where I'm gonna be talking with you guys from.
Nice. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I also believe in ownership of everything that happens in your life, either because of you or to you or whatever. And I feel like it's important. Other people do things. Other people have their own agendas or reasons or whatever, and you just have to roll with it, because life's gonna happen and things change. And Jason and I had already kind of talked about contingency if you were not here, continuity interruption, talking about leadership and stuff like that, that we would just talk about whatever. And yeah, we were going to talk about like film and screening, screenplays and stuff like that. And so we've been doing that. So yeah, you're here, and it's pretty cool. We got like an hour and a half left for the show. So the first hour, we're just kind of dealing with this. So I want to dive in, y'all. Like what I wanted to do originally was so I started this group last year, y'all, called Savannah Podcasters Association. And it was with the intent to have a group of folks in the area who have their own shows, so we could collaborate and say, hey, this is what's working for me, this is what's working for not working, and that kind of thing. And so we met up last year. I think it was either last year or earlier this year. I can't remember exactly when, but if it was last year, it was like the end of last year. If it was this year, it was like the beginning of this year. But we have a little group online, and we talk about like things that work for us and don't work for us. We share our shows and that kind of stuff, because we want to grow our audiences and we want to reach more people and help more people and that kind of thing. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was that kind of stuff. If you're out there listening to the show and you're like, okay, well, I don't know where to start. So I'll give us a story that happened to me this week, and how I got into doing this show. But a friend of mine, her name is Usry Hurt. She's been a guest on the show before. She's also one of the authors in my upcoming anthology. She has her own podcast, and it's about short stories that she writes herself, and then she narrates them. And last year she narrated a story for me that I had called Wrong Turn. And I was going to put it on Audible when the story first released, but because of contract, I couldn't do that. And I decided to release the story for free on my podcast. So that's there. Well, this week she had written up a little article talking about the upcoming anthology. She has a story there. She was talking about me with doing the Valhalla books and all that. And one of the things that I did not know was that she started her podcast because I encouraged her to do a podcast. And I never knew that. I didn't know that she had done that, because I had encouraged her to. And I thought that was such a neat little, compliment. And I was like, wow, this is great. So you never know when somebody, your words might help someone else. And you never know how far that would go. Right.
Sure.
So, and I think it's great. I mean, like I love seeing when my friends are successful. I want to, and this is something else that everybody that I'm kind of bridging the gap with too, because I like to share a lot of positive stuff. It doesn't mean that I don't have negative thoughts or negative feelings or whatever. I do a lot. Actually, I have a lot. But what I do is I try to think, okay, well, how can I work past this or get back on track with what I want to do? And going back to the podcast stuff, it's like, okay, well, one of the reasons why I committed to doing the radio show throughout the pandemic was I felt like I was serving the community, with our local community, not just our local community, but also the authors and the artists and the entertainers who come on the show, and then their audiences, with the folks that, because this show, I have an opportunity to give people a chance to talk more about their stuff, right? And more than like a little soundbite, like a little 2-minute clip, or even, like the blog kind of interviews that are real popular or whatever. they get a chance to really talk about their stuff. We get a chance to go kind of in depth with it and whatever. And that's one of the things I love about doing the podcaster group, is that we have a chance to share stuff like that. Now, I know we don't always share best practices, in the group, and it's not geared towards like, a learning module type group or anything like that. But I feel like it's opened a lot of connections up for people where they have had a chance to meet new friends. I know when we had the first physical meetup, it was kind of neat because, several people got to meet each other for the first time. And so, I think it's pretty cool. So can you all share maybe some, like, I don't know, some positive takeaways that you've had, with doing that and making the connections and stuff?
Matt, you go first.
I was literally just gonna say I'm gonna lob this up to Jason. Okay, so just to clarify, so just like some positive experiences with the podcast, or like in the creation of it.
Not necessarily the creation of it, but like the connection and the sharing, the relationship building part of.
Oh God, that's been absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And I've had so many of those little instances, just like you talked about, where with your friend and how she had launched her podcast as an inspiration from a conversation that you had. And it's so interesting when you really sit and think about it. It's like, how many people are going to listen to the sound of her voice, relay those stories, and are going to be entertained, and it's going to change the way that they perceive stories, and we don't know what's going to happen, what kind of creativity that's going to spark from those people, all from one interaction that you had. It's like the power of our personal influence is so great and beyond anything that we could ever understand, that like taking positive control of who you are and who you want to be and how your voice is put out there it's crucial. And especially in this day and age when there's so much noise, and if you can find a way to cut yourself apart and really focus. And I think the way that you cut yourself apart is by really focusing on those relationships, just like you're talking about. Like, I've had people reach out to me directly and not comment on the show, my show itself, but let me know about how the show has impacted their life. And say that this one episode in particular, like this changed everything. Like, I stopped putting my energy into X, and I started putting it into Y. And now I've launched this company. Like, I was thinking about doing it and I wanted to do it, and you know what? I listened and I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to do it now. I'm just like, I'm not going to put it off anymore. I'm listening to what you said and I'm going to do it. And I'm like, that's awesome, because as a podcast, you're not talking to one person when you're delivering your message and you're talking to people. You're not talking to one person, but as a recipient of a podcast, you are taking it in very personally. And so it's a kind of a beautiful part of the artwork of podcasting is you can really change people's lives. And when you get that response back that you've had this positive influence, there's nothing more exciting. There's nothing more invigorating for me than having a positive impact on somebody's life.
I think that's great. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna take. Obviously, we've made some great relationships. A lot of our guests with End of Watch were people that Bootsy and Sal worked with before, or whatever, and people that I'd read their books before I even knew who they were, and looked up to them for their contributions to, whatever their specific, career or whatever was. But the other thing too, the kind of side benefit is connecting with other creators. Mm-hmm. And like the two of you, had I not done this, I wouldn't be able to connect with the two of you, with a couple of other podcasts I'm working with, LA Not So Confidential, Dr. Shiloh and Dr. Scott, who are, I think, listening right now. I texted them to ask them. They're on the West Coast. And Rebecca Sebastian with the Dialogue podcast as well, working with her to tell stories in the true crime genre from a different angle, the kind of the whys, the hows, the whats. So yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity to connect with people that are as committed to creating content as you are, and that's fun. That's a lot of fun, because it's sometimes hard to find people that are committed in that way to put something forward. So I just think that's a lot of fun.
I love that, Jason, and I want to talk about that right after we do the station announcements, because
Awesome.
it is I love connecting with creative people who are the doers. So I'll be right back.
This portion of WRUU-LP Savannah Soundings programming is made possible by listeners like you and Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day is celebrating its 40th year serving the Savannah community with produce, vitamins, and supplements, and a deli and juice bar. Brighter Day is located at 1102 Bull Street at the south end of Forsyth Park. More information available at 912-236-4703 or brighterdayfoods.com. Many critical issues are facing the residents of Savannah and all Americans, including the coronavirus, homeschooling, and the upcoming general election. WRUU has 3 programs which address these issues: The Common Good on Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m., The Happy Homeschooler on Wednesdays from 2 to 3 p.m., and We the People, The Constitution Today on Sundays from 8 to 9 p.m. Stay informed about these important issues by tuning into these programs on WRUU.
WRUU 107.5 FM is a new and different listener-supported and all-volunteer community radio station for Savannah. Our diverse broadcast and web programming is supported by generous listeners who value our passion and spunk. We are independent of other media and receive no government or large corporate support. People like you are our largest and most important source of our funding. Go to WRUU.org to find out how you can make a one-time or a monthly contribution. Thank you.
All right, here is Sebastian Messer, everybody, and what are you gonna play now? Just gonna noodle?
Yeah.
All right, he's going to just play some free music called, well, they call it noodling, but here's some music by Sebastian Messer. Thank you, Bass. That's good. All right, and we are back. Jason and Matt, are you there?
Yep, still with me.
Still with me. Jason?
Yep.
All right. So, you touched on a topic. I bring this up quite a bit, and I love that you brought it up today, so I didn't have to. But I love connecting with creative people who are the doers. And, I'm not patting myself on the back here, but one of the things Allie said in the article, which kind of took me aback, was that she said that I was a man of many ideas and execution, which I was like, wow, and I'm just going to say, it did give me and I'm smiling ear to ear here, but it did give me really nice, warm feeling. Here's somebody that I like. It is a friend of mine. And that, she feels that way about me. And it was a nice compliment. It was also a good reflection of what I strive to do, because I try to set goals and then accomplish those goals and then share, that work with other people. Because, that's my goal is I really would like to be able to be self-supportive with my creative stuff, with my writing and other things. I mean, I volunteer with the radio station, so I'm not getting paid for that. I don't get paid for the podcast, but I love doing the volunteer work. And it was just nice, it was just really nice. So when you were talking about that, Jason, it is, for me, I feel the same way, connecting with other people who are the, doers. They don't, they don't just talk about like, creating a new movie script or, screenplay or whatever. Or they don't just talk like Matt, about, starting a new business and saying, hey, I'm going to launch this training course, and then it never happens. I mean, because there's a lot of folks out there. Right. I had a guy that sent me a question one time, a couple months ago, and asked me if I was, interested in a story. And I was like, well, I'm not really accepting pitches right now, but, I'll be glad to, read the first 500 words. And the guy had not written anything about it at all. He just had an idea. And that's,
right.
That's nice. Having an idea is nice, but it's not, like we don't live in the world of spec script writing or spec book writing or anything like that, where it's like, hey, I've just got this idea, and Hollywood or the big publishing companies are going to just throw money at it like they did 20 years ago. It's just, this is not going to happen. So people want to see more of the work, right? So I think it is important to not only talk about it, but also be about it. Do the thing it is that if you say you're a writer, write. It doesn't mean you have to be published or famous or anything. I'm not famous. I'm published, but I'm not famous. I'm not wealthy. But I'm a writer.
Well, I think it's important that you do it for yourself. You don't do it for other people, because if you start really doing it for other people, if there's not, even if you're writing for hire, you have to find your truth in whatever it is that you're writing. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten someone said to me when they knew that I write screenplays, they say, hey, I've got a really good movie idea for you. Man, if I had $1 for every time that happened, I could have retired 10 years ago. But again, like to your point, actually putting pen to paper, one of the things that drew me to Kevin Grogan Bootsy on End to Watch was I reached out to him and wanted to learn about his story. And he came to me and said, I have a screenplay. He sat down and he wrote a screenplay. He had no experience. Mm-hmm. He wrote a screenplay and he asked me to help him finesse it. And now he's one of, he's a brother to me. And, but that's the kind of thing you be a doer. Don't just talk about it. I mean, you're right. You have to talk about it to get to a point that you can do. But if you only talk about it, then you've wasted something that could be really extraordinary.
And I love that you say that, because I have made such great connections, like with you two. I mean, you guys have become really good friends, because of the kind of stuff. Like I can say, hey, I've got this idea, I want to throw it out there to you, or hey, I'm having this pitfall. I'm not, whatever. And I can say, ask, like, for example, Jason, I was asking you, like, what are some of the books on screenwriting? And, you sent me back some resources, that you consider to be really good resources, which have helped, Same thing with you, Matt. I mean, we talk, we do the Matt and Adam show, and we talk about, grit and doing the work. And why does it matter? Because we have that simpatico mindset of let's get through the grind. I mean, like, honestly, everybody, if I were to say I don't want to be well to do, I would be lying. But I don't do my creative stuff with the mindset of I'm going to make $1 million off of this next idea, because that's just not, I don't think that that's reality. Like, there's a guy that I know that he's an independent published author. And he just, he published that he just made his first $1 million selling books, which I thought was pretty cool. He's been doing it for 5 years, and I thought that was, pretty good for him, but that is the anomaly. It's like the exception. It's, most people are not going to make $1 million from self-publishing their work. And I'm okay with that, but I would like to, be able to sell my work and people to enjoy it. Actually, I've been kind of going through this revival of like, okay, well, what do I want to write? And one of the reasons why is because I've been doing this Ray Bradbury challenge. And one of the things that he said in a video that I watched of him talking to a group of college students, he said, if you have writer's block, which I have not really been having writer's block, but I've been kind of like not really enjoying the writing. He said, if you're having writer's block, that means that your heart's telling you something, like it's not, right for you or whatever. And man, you want to talk about, just kind of hitting me right on the chin with it. Like, man, it just woke me up. I was like, okay, well, I have different ideas that I want to do. I have different commitments that I, have made. How do I move forward? Another example, of moving forward and working with the doers. I'm publishing this book, this anthology, and it's coming out in October. My expectation was that everybody involved with the project would be just as excited about it as me. Reality is that no, they're not. And they're not helping as much as I really expected them to. That's something I have to deal with and move forward, because I thought, hey, everybody that's going to be on this is going to be like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. And it's just not. I mean, there's a couple of cheerleaders and, they're doing the thing, but majority of them, it's just like, they're kind of neutral. They're not there. They're not there. You know what I mean? So I like dealing with the doers. I like working with the doers. I like the folks that are, that they care about their work and what they're trying to do. And I cannot believe it's already a quarter hour. Everybody, you listen to WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. So bouncing it back over to you, Matt, how do you feel about that with working with the doers and, the creative people?
So it's really neat. I'm also extremely happy that Jason had brought it up on that end, because when I started my podcast, which was the origination for what would eventually lead to the business, I had in my mind that I was gonna be putting stuff like content and information, entertainment out to people that will help benefit their lives. And the cool thing about having that plan, taking action on the plan, and following through on it is that's what happened. But what I didn't expect to happen is the type of inspiration and collaboration that I would have on the road in this journey of doing that, and how my life has changed from, chance encounters. Like I worked when I was in the Army with a really nice gentleman who worked in our finance department, and he introduced me to this other really nice guy who I happen to be on his radio show right now.
Corey Brooks, you are the best, man. I love Corey to death. He's a very accomplished photographer, and I just love him to death.
And then it's how those things continue to spiral. It's one of the things where when I think the way that you kind of interweave these things together is that what Jason said really, really, really matters, is that whatever you're doing, you have to do it for yourself first. Like it's got to derive from that passion inside of who you are. And then once you do that, then if you're really passionate about it, like you're willing to see it develop and to blossom and change into something that you might not expect. Like your head's kind of more on the swivel. It's really important that that's the case, because if you get so locked in on one thing, you're like, no, I can't take in this information from this person. No, that I like what they're doing over there, but that's nothing to do with me. You're going to be putting these blinders on to what it is that you're doing. And so understanding on the front end that it's not going to show up how I expected. Like my show now is not what I expected in the beginning. And the
I know, because when we were first talking about it, it was like totally different than what it is now. And I think it's a great evolution of, how I really feel like it's a great evolution of how you have grown as a person since I first met you. because you have gone through a tremendous number of changes.
Yeah, I like to. When I had met you, I think that I said that I was already on my 5th life, and so now I feel like I'm on my 7th. So
Well,
these are
the nice thing
very distinct, like.
Nice thing about it, I think,
periods
as
of time.
I think Yasmin gave you, like in the Super Mario Brother world, like Super Mario Brother, like you get the bonus lives. I think she like gave you back all your bonus lives and more. So
Yeah, no, I've been supercharged. It's the way that we take care of each other, and the way that she really puts my passion and everything for on the creative side. She prioritizes that. It's something that in choosing who I want to invest time and love and energy with was very, very important to me. And she is that. There's a reason it wasn't accidental that I was like, hey, you want to get married? And it's because she's that way, and it's because I'm enthusiastic about promoting her and making sure that she's supported as she continues to do her things. And that's part of those underlining structures that help all of us out. We never do it on our own.
yeah.
It comes from us and it's our passion, but it's those inputs that we get from those other creators. It's those people that we're closest to in life that watch us get hit in the face and deal with the hardest struggles, and that are there with us to for us to put our head on their shoulder and to be able to get back up and fight, and they're the ones to help lift us back up. And so that's like you and Jason on the friendship / professional / co-creator side, and then it's Yasmin on the personal side, who's my wife, and even my kids. Like, oh my gosh, I remember when I told my daughter that I was going to be putting the majority of my focus into my business, she was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And I'm like, really?
Nice.
I'm so happy that you're excited.
Yeah, that is nice. The cool thing about it is, like, for example, with me and the stuff that I do, I've done conventions and events and meet the author stuff and a lot of different stuff or whatever. And my family's always been supportive of me. Not necessarily always helping me do the work. I do ring them in sometimes. I wrangle them into hey, I need some people to help me, with with working at the events. But they're very supportive of it. Not always involved though. Like my wife and my girls, they don't really get involved with the radio show and most of the other creative stuff I do. But my son, he's always doing stuff with me, and it's just not my wife's stick. She doesn't. She's just not into it. And that's cool. I'm totally cool with it because we have other things that we have interests together and all that. Jason, I know you're a big family man. Is that can you attest to that as well?
Oh yeah, I mean you can't do. I guess you could do what I want to do on your own, but it'd be a very lonely existence. My wife is extraordinarily supportive. She's my biggest cheerleader. Sometimes I tell her stop cheering so hard because in at least in the screenwriting world, things look really, really good 95% of the way, and then things fall apart that last 5%. So sometimes I just and she still cheers me on, but sometimes I feel like I'm so afraid of things losing steam at the last second. But that said, I wouldn't be able to do it without her support and her cheering me on and giving me opportunities to write, to be by myself. And then we have a 3-year-old who, he's active and, she handles nap time sometimes if I need to come in and write, or she'll handle bedtime if I need to come in and write. And I feel so supported by her and the rest of my family. And my mom also, from a very from when I was small, she always told me that she empowered me to believe that I could do whatever I wanted to do, even though my early circumstances may not have made that apparent. And So I've been very blessed by my family. I have a great group of friends, including guys who have continued to offer encouragement, and you do have to find your tribe. You have to find those people that are going to keep building you up realistically.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, to be an anchor. To be be a foundation and an anchor. Not to be a naysayer, but to also offer that realism. And
Absolutely.
I hate to cut you off. I want us to go into this, more into the next hour about talking about the tribe, but we've got to cut it off right now. Everybody, you're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer. My special guests today are Jason Usry and Matt Lostaglia. We're finishing up this first hour, and then we're going to be coming back at the 4 o'clock hour and talking more about creative stuff. So